Good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 7th, and this is the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting specific to the elementary restructuring. We will be hosting a forum tonight and a public hearing. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic of one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so before we get started, I'm just going to read a little note to all of you that have joined us this evening. We find ourselves here again to discuss the elementary school model for Hendrick Hudson. I thank you for your willingness to participate and to be with us this evening. As we review the various models and potential future for Hendrick Hudson Elementary, I ask you to keep the focus on education. Keep the focus on the kids with a student-first mindset. Additional considerations should include the physical space and setup of our 3 elementary buildings, as well as transportation, specifically resource utilization, geography of the district, and environmental impact. Please be conscious of the allocated 3 minutes per speaker rule. We have the clock above my head here. We will not extend comments tonight for anyone in order to keep things moving and to remain fair to all speakers this evening. If you have previously conveyed your thoughts to the board, please try to avoid repetitive comments and provide us with new thoughts, ideas, and concerns. Last but not least, I know this is a very emotional topic for most people. Please remember that just because you feel a certain way does not mean that someone else must share in your views. We are all entitled to our feelings and our perspectives. Please be respectful of each speaker as well as the others in the room. We are a community of family, friends, and neighbors. Thank you. Okay. Armin?
Our first speaker is Michelle Piccolo-Hill.
Wait, so efficient. Hello, thank you again for delaying the decision to restructure the elementary school this past April. However, I'm surprised to see that we're already being presented with an array of alternative models. Why? Shouldn't assessment come first? Wasn't the April decision based upon the idea of taking the time necessary to properly review the current system before deciding anything? There were logistical transportation issues, but many have been addressed. The input of teachers had been overlooked. Has it been solicited this time around? Or are we just ignoring them again? Shouldn't information be gathered and reviewed before you even consider potential restructuring? Before you fix a problem, you need to know what is and isn't working well. Making changes before you do that might just make the problem worse. As you know, I firmly believe in the value of grade banding. I think having all the kids together helps create a better sense of community while working to combat the undercurrent of bias and inequity. When implemented correctly, it can increase academic opportunities for the children while being economically efficient. And I certainly hope that the full K-5 model is removed from the equation. That community model, which was never truly a community model because of zoning, was given decades to work and only created a system of division, inequity, and bias that needs corrected. Moreover, I hope the board recognizes that the recent election was a clear referendum that the majority of the community is in favor of the Princeton Plan model. Any substantive decisions should be made with that in mind and with the full new board in place. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Annika Manny.
Hi, thank you for giving us an opportunity to have this forum. I really do appreciate the chance to be heard. I just like to say I'm a current parent in the district. My older son is in 6th grade at Blue Mountain Middle School and attended BV for elementary before this restructuring. And my younger son is in preschool right now in the UPK program and will be going to kindergarten in the fall at FGO. My main question here is, what problem are we seeking to solve? The community really needs to understand what problem we're solving for. Why are we here? Why are we talking about restructuring our elementary schools less than 1 year after we restructured our elementary schools? Is the current model not working? And in what ways? We need to have data on student performance, attendance, school climate, student perceptions, faculty perceptions, staff perceptions. We haven't seen any of that data, so we don't understand whether what we have right now is working or not. We don't know. Is the current model too expensive? Did we think that this model was going to save us money, and in fact, it's cost us more money? We need data on costs, and we need those costs broken out by startup costs that are one-time costs to implement a new model, and ongoing costs that will be bared in future years and will be relatively stable. Is the current model unsafe? There's been a lot of discussion about decommissioning Indian Point and the impact of that on our community. We need to know, are we concerned that students at BV are at risk? And is that why we now have two options on the table that involve closing BV? If that's the case, we really need to have a serious conversation about what exactly are the risks in this community. And those don't just affect students at BV. Our schools are not that far apart. So I'd like to understand more about if that is why BV is on the table for closing, like we need to have a really serious conversation about that. I believe we should be making data-informed decisions. We need to understand why, again, why are we talking about this again? Why are we doing this less than 1 year after we did it without any data on progress or outcomes? In order for all of us to have an informed, rational, calm conversation, we need to know why we're here, what problem we're solving for. I'm concerned that doing this again, less than a year later, we're going to be spending a lot of money. We're going to be spending a lot of time. We're going to be spending a lot of people's effort. And I'm just not sure why. And I'm not sure it's worth it. I personally believe, like many people in the room, that the new model has a lot of benefits. Primary among them, a more equitable distribution of resources across our elementary schools. And I'd like to see that whatever model we choose, it be one that we aren't literally drawing a line across our community by income. Thank you.
Point of order. Point of order. Well, we could do it.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, we can do it.
Thank you.
All right. I definitely don't need 3 minutes. I just want to give thanks to all of you for holding this forum and for putting the additional options into consideration for us to look at for the future state. I do believe that you're doing this forum to gather this type of information as part of your assessment. And I think you need to hear from everybody who's willing to come forward. And so I encourage those individuals that are here today, if you haven't signed up, please sign up and make your concerns or love for what's happening in the district today, because this is where you get an opportunity to do so, and no one will be judged for what they say here. So all the plans that you have shown us, we'd love to see more thorough feedback around the pros and cons to each. There are pros and cons to each model. Nothing is perfect, but I know that we need to look at that in order to decide which model will bring us into the future and also bring success today to the students that are living this, as well as to all the families that are going through this, as well as the future families that are going to move into our district. And that's what we're trying to fix, because there is concerns and there are still problems. Transportation is still a problem. And putting dollars into buses and into the air, look what's happening around us, more carbon releases happening. It's not something that we should be putting our money. Our money should be in the services that we should have in our school. The plans that you're bringing forward that have 5th grade moving to the middle school, I see opportunity. I see expansions on curriculum, on specials, maybe even on foreign language sooner. That's great. However, these children are also young. And if we have them with 8th graders, will they be learning behaviors too soon? We need to understand that. And we need to make sure that we are assessing it in a model, in a report that everyone can see. So whether it's your opinions, the facts that you bring together that we see in a presentation, that's what I think people are looking for when they talk about data-driven decisions. And the data needs to be right. That is something that I think everyone continues to question. And how can we get that to be better so that we don't need to question it any longer? However, it's hard. I deal with different systems in my job, and I can tell you how many times that I see incorrect data because of human hands inputting it into the system. So just wanted to voice again appreciation for you holding this forum and encouraging everyone to come speak, because we all should be able to get a chance to talk about our children and the future state of our community. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Kristen Irwin.
All right, thank you so much for holding this forum. I'm advocating for 2 K-4 schools and the closure of BV Elementary to students. The U.S. Department of Transportation, the Office of Pipeline Safety, has bans on hard to evacuate facilities in places where people congregate, like schools, playgrounds, and recreational spaces within 1,000 feet of a gas pipeline larger than 30 inches. A 42-inch gas pipeline runs 400 feet from BV's cafeteria. The state will soon have to correct the illegal zoning status of our facility and force the relocation of that student population. Let us conscientiously mobilize for this inevitability. With the massive cost savings of BV's closure, we can rebuild the school ratings of our district, as well as bring equity to our elementary school experiences. For BV to remain in use, the cafeteria needs renovation, which would siphon vital funding. Planned construction activities would increase the risk of a pipeline rupture at that site. We cannot allow building improvements to place our surrounding neighbors in excessive danger. The board has a unique opportunity to help protect our neighbors in Verplank and Buchanan if there were to be an emergency at Indian Point. By removing this hard to evacuate facility from that neighborhood, all first responder resources would focus on residents rather than hundreds of school children. So let us plan this restructure prudently so we do not overburden our educators and staff members. As parents, we know that children receive calm, patience, guidance when the primary caregiver is relaxed, rested, and has access to the resources they need. When educators and support staff experience burnout and compassionate fatigue from all of this, there's no room for kids to make mistakes in the classroom gracefully. Kids adapt to the stress and fall into survival mode. I'm watching my other kids complain about having, sick stomach, and my own child made the connection. I think I feel sick and want to stay home from school because I'm afraid my teacher is going to be mad at me. So I think we are seeing emotional reactions to the stress of the caregivers. We're thinking that the kids are reacting to the structure of the schools, but they're reacting to the quality of the care that we are giving them at home and in the school. If everybody's stressed out, nobody gets good care. It's straightforward. It's how our brains are wired. We don't receive and learn new information when we're scared. And I grew up on the Mason-Dixon line where we had this grade banding and going to class, and I experienced this, and it's because of my experience with grade banding that I've been advocating since 2020 to not go to this model. There are other ways we can do it together as neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bronson.
Thank you for holding this evening. It's vital as a large portion of voters turned out 3 weeks ago, made a definitive statement with the 2 elected candidates that support grade banning. That we really need to evaluate this first year and see how that measures going forward, especially as we were in the first year of it as well. I also want to touch on the adaptability. A month ago, an administrator recently pointed out an email to the parents that, as the staff and the teachers come together with their grade level colleagues, this was the most cohesive and collaborative staff that they had ever had the pleasure of working with. For these teachers to adapt to this change, that's telling. And the collaboration and bonding of these children at a younger age is tremendous and helps mend the divide in this community going forward. And, we saw it this year with our son, and the friends and, bonding that he had established, with kids all throughout the district. Listen to the teachers' input too. These teachers are with the children throughout the course of the year and are trained and know how to work and meet each child's learning needs, and they're the backbone of this district. And then reviewing some of the peer districts, in the sports classifications with Hen Hood, such as Nanuet, Ardsley, Byron Hills, and Pleasantville. There's a common theme here. One, they're all grade banded K through 12 in some form or fashion. Two, they have higher state and national rankings than Hen Hood, and this was a ranking with Hen Hood as a K through 5 community-based model. I also want to touch about athletics too with this. So, I look at the banners and I look at the signage up front. Really, unfortunately, there's no team championships. There are some individual-based championships throughout this district, but none really on a team basis. Team sports really consists of camaraderie, cohesion, and good coaching. And one of the schools I mentioned, the peer district, Pleasantville, they have a solid program in place at the youth level. And a key factor there is, given the similar enrollment sizes, they're banded together K through 12, and they've learned to, at the very start, learn how to mesh with one another, interact, develop bonds and friendships, and regardless of where they live in this district. And, they see each other often throughout the hallway, cafeteria, at recess, playing with one another. And, this carries on, with team sports as well. And, having this, it helps enhance and develop the school pride and spirit at an early age. And it helps mend the divide as sports helps bring the neighbors together. And it's a long-term, if we could develop the solid sports programs throughout the district, that could definitely help going forward. One thing I just want to touch on real quick too is on the analytics. So as I said, we need to take a full look at the first full year of grade banding and compare it to the prior performance pre-Princeton plan and assess how we're going to do going forward. And we also need to take a look at the costs as well, make sure we're getting accurate information as well. All right, I guess that's it for my time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anne-Marie Talbert.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Talbert, and I have two sons in elementary school in the district. One's at FGL and the other is at BV. And they came from Furnace Woods. And in our household, we have different opinions about Princeton Plan. I'm a big supporter of Princeton Plan. I do think I agree with many of my neighbors and people here, parents here, who believe that we do need to see what's actually worked, rather than taking a very emotional response to just wanting things to go back to the way they were. We know that things have to change. And if there are issues with safety at BV, we should absolutely be looking at that. But if it's just a function of BV was the, stepchild and was not adequately supported to be a robust and wonderful school, then we should fix that too. I hear that even from my son. He's like, oh, the fields, mom, they stink compared to Furnace Woods. We don't have a full-fledged soccer field. Everything, it just isn't as nice as Furnace Woods was. And I said, well, we can make it that way. So I think that we need to assess what has been working, what has improved. And I'm glad that you're looking at opportunities, but I also think that it doesn't make sense to switch horses so quickly before we know what's actually worked and what hasn't. And I think that the Princeton plan and grade banding and bringing everyone together is much better for the future of our district than going backwards. Thanks.
Dan Hillen.
Yes, I'm here because I want to stress not just the importance of taking a data-driven approach and looking at the metrics as far as making a decision, but also to implore the board and the administration to put forward specific objectives behind what they intend to achieve with each plan, and accompany that with metrics that the success criteria for meeting those objectives can be used to evaluate whether or not the objectives have been met and whether or not they have been successful. You know, I don't have a lot of the history that many other people do who lived in the district for a long time. I moved here with my wife in 2019. And so I don't have a lot of the background with that stuff, but you know, initially I was caught off guard and with the implementation of the Princeton plan, and I was hesitant, hesitant about it. But it was, but as I understood it, what the board was proposing was, you know, to achieve something like 7-figure savings with going ahead with the Princeton plan, which was very necessary given the closure at the medium point and the hole that was going to leave in the budget. It seems that from what I've heard from following the board meetings, that has not been achieved. And now a lot of the discussion around the switch to the Princeton plan has been put forward in the context of DEI, as you know, in terms of DEI. And that's great. You know, either one of those is a valid objective to achieve from making a switch from, you know, a community-based school to you know, to a Princeton plan or a grade banding. But I think what part of the problem was there was no clearly, as far as it was conveyed to me, and I think probably conveyed to a number of other people, there was no clear statement of what the objective and the intent and seriously what metrics were intended to be hit, right? As far as that, and I think that in terms of people being able to evaluate the options being proposed and understanding that, it'd be very important that the board not only make it clear, you know, how they've arrived at choosing that, but you know, what they intend to achieve with going with a particular decision and how the community can tell whether or not that objective has been met and that has been successful, in order to hold the board and the administration accountable going forward over the coming years. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Frank.
Good afternoon, board. I just wanted to also just say thank you guys for holding this forum again, giving everybody an opportunity to speak their minds after the election and stuff like that, and after the December forum. I looked at all the research and stuff, so I would say that some of the comments that were made, right, it would be nice to see exactly where we started at with the cost savings from Princeton plan. I think there was a lot of discussion that the Princeton plan model was going to save us a lot of money, and it seems like that's pretty obvious that we fell short of that. So I'd like to see exactly how far we fell short of that. Also, after listening to a lot of people during, you know, my own campaign, I did realize that the grade banding model does seem like it's pretty important to a lot of people in the community. I'm not an advocate of as many transitions as currently involved in the plan that we have right now. I think that there are plans that you guys did put out there that can achieve both a grade banding, sense of community model, and also limit the transitions. So I'm glad that you guys still have that on the table. And I'm hoping that that's something that we can push for. There's a lot of conversation about how this Princeton plan model allows children to see each other consistently through the day. I mean, I made it very well known. I'm a baseball coach. All the kids on my son's team are all in his grade. He doesn't see any of them at all. The only time he sees them is at baseball practice. So I don't know where parents are getting this idea that kids are constantly seeing each other throughout the schools, because my son only sees the kids that are in his grade on Wednesdays and Saturdays when we play baseball. The other thing that I was a little upset about was we purchased the buses, right, in this last proposition. So that basically would make the Princeton plan model more achievable, because we realized that we failed on the transportation aspect, right? It's a higher cost. We were putting these youngest in our district on the bus for longer periods of time. Now we're going to purchase these additional buses, right? If we slide from that, what would be the plan that we do with those buses? Are we gonna sell those buses to try to recuperate some of that money back? Are we looking to just keep those buses? What would be the purpose for that? That was another thing I was thinking about when I was looking through the plans. Because I don't think that you would need as much transportation, because one of the issues with the Princeton plan was that it was a transportation nightmare. It was a logistical nightmare. So I'm glad that you guys have all the models out there. I know everybody has their own opinion on what they think is best. I mean, long term, yeah, there may be something down the line where, maybe you go to like a plan B or something like that, where you close down BV, but then if you do something like that, then how do you achieve diversity in the schools? I know that's been a big issue. So for me personally, I kind of like plan B. I think plan B kind of achieves both, where you get like diversity, you limit transitions, and I think it would be more of a community school base where everybody kind of gets a little slice of what they want. So I just want to say thank you guys for putting that back out there, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Christine Tien. I'm a mother of 3. My oldest is in 2nd. My youngest is coming up to UPK at FGL. I work more than full time. My husband has longer work days than I do. And even just the thought of managing all of the schedules with the grade banding model gives me anxiety. But I will say with that, I am still a huge proponent of grade banding. I'd love to not be terribly repetitive about the things I say, but I don't have new information to which to respond. I agree with the man who spoke 2 people ago about wanting to see all the plans laid out with success criteria and plans for data collection. We haven't even seen that with our current model. I would also love to know what data is being collected other than parent opinions to determine what we do going forward. But for what I know, I'll speak to that. I love the idea that my children will be with all of their peers for the entirety of their schooling. On a less personal and more realistic note, it feels very logical that the grade banding will lead to more equitable use and distribution of resources. Above all, I think it's absolutely essential to keep the elementary school teachers together as they pilot a new ELA curriculum. For my job, I'm steeped in education research every day. I know that when schools take on too many big changes at one time, they fail their students in unintentional ways. To pilot a whole new curriculum, which is absolutely essential right now to getting our children's literacy skills up to speed, the teachers and administrators in every building will have to dedicate ample time and resources to training and to allowing the teachers ample shared planning time. It is high quality curriculum paired with high quality professional development that has a positive impact on student learning. And that above all has to take precedence in the years to come. People should be focused on what our students are learning and how they are learning it. And at this point, that is far more important than where they are learning it. The #1 issue facing our district right now is not grade banding, it's the abysmal amount of students achieving proficiency in literacy skills. And to focus this much time and energy on moving things around once again so soon after the recent change is just going to hold our students back for another year or 2 longer. It no longer matters how mad people are at how this change occurred, it happened. Maybe in a few years, we can be in a place to reconsider where our students are located based on actual data. But for the next few years, the focus must be on the literacy skills of our students and the training of our teachers. We have to put our focus there, collect actual usable data, and determine if this is the best way to structure our elementary schools. I do want to know more about the data. The testing data this year is not going to be reliable enough to make any determinations. I would like to know long-term financial implications on these plans and how they're determining those. And I do think that the election results speaks volumes about how people feel about grade banding. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julia Wang.
Hi, I just told Christine, I can't believe I have to go after her. Thanks for having us. I'm also a mom of 3. My kids are in kindergarten, 2nd and 4th grade. We've seen huge advantages with grade banding this year.
Friendships, school-specific activities. Anybody who's talked to me in the past 2 months knows I'm super passionate about the beautification work I was able to do with the 4th and 5th grade at Furnace Woods, which wouldn't have been possible at a K-5 school in the same way. Science fairs, dances, the way that our PTA has come together all as one has been amazing to watch, and the work that's gone into it is really thrilling. The disadvantages for families, parents specifically, caregivers specifically, I should say, occur when communication and collaboration across the schools don't take place. I'm really hoping that as we figure out what's next, we can also work on continuing to improve this model for next year. For me, it's really about principals working together, having all the principals talk to each other. We've had a few instances of times getting moved so that 5th grade parents can get to graduation and not be worried about their younger kids getting home off the bus later. Things like that just are afterthoughts because they're muscles we haven't trained yet, and I'm hoping we can get better at that as we go. Whichever model we go to, whether it's 3 individual schools, 2 individual schools, or even back to K-5, I think the principals have to be a united front. Otherwise, I think we'll just end up in the same spot that we have been. When we look forward to the 5 options you put in front of us, I have a few questions. How are you going to be evaluating each of these models? Other people have asked, is it more than just parent feedback? How do we get objective input about what's better, worse, pros, cons, money, all of that? What's the path forward? And what are the key milestone moments in making this decision? This year has been a whirlwind of decisions and not knowing what's happening at which meetings, and for you all as well, I understand, but it would be really helpful to understand what our end goal looks like. To that end, when do you expect these changes to go into place? Is this a 24-25 implementation? Is it further out if there are changes? How are you going to communicate to the community what that path is? And then I think finally, just as you consider each of the options, because ultimately it's a vote by you all, whichever option you choose will help us understand what the board believes is a priority for this district, whether it's safety, DEI, transportation, ease, etc. So thank you for the time.
Bill Walsh.
Good evening. Many moons ago, I had a course in columns in public management with Frank Fisher, a HUD regional director in the Johnson administration, which I guess tells you how old that was. He would give the actions of the board distribution that goes into tonight's discussion, the solid F. And the reason you would do that is what you're doing is not putting the cart before the horse. You're deciding you're going to buy a cart before you even know what the use of the cart is, or whether you need a horse at all. You haven't looked at what the issues are that the district is facing. You haven't looked at what the best ways of addressing those issues could be. Could be that the option, the best option, or even the most rational option is not one of the 5 that you've outlined, because none of the 5 that are in that distribution today address any problem at all that this district faces. It's all wishful thinking on people's part to what they want to return to, or how we can tweak it somewhat in the future to what they want to return to. But you have to remember, and what the president of the board pointed out at the start of this, is that what you're addressing is the education of 1,000 students who are the K-5 group. Those 1,000 students are not ones who are individually concerned about different things. You have to see what the problems are in their education, what are the best ways to develop that education, and then develop a plan around it. Once you know what the issues are, how to address it, then you can get to relatively minor details about where to put those students so that you can address the problems. Until that point, you need to look at the issues. I don't think you can assess the new plan after 1 year. I think it's gonna need 3. You're gonna need to take the time to figure out what the best approach is, and I hope you do that. Thank you.
Henning?
So thank you very much for taking the time tonight to hear us for a second time, hear our perspectives, our experiences. My name is Nancy Henning. I'm the mother of a 3rd grader. I have 2 girls. I have a 3rd grader going into 4th and a 1st grader who's going into 2nd. Needless to say, my children and many other children in our elementary school in this district have gone through literally the worst elementary experience. I think we wouldn't condemn it on our worst enemies, elementary students. COVID was extraordinarily difficult for elementary kids. There's plenty of articles out there that support that. It's very difficult to learn to read when you can't see the formation of words from your teachers, right? And these are our children who, coming immediately out of it, had to go through this transition. So as all of you likely know, I've been very outspoken since the start of conversations around restructuring. I have, and I continue to feel very strongly that our youngest learners should be focused on learning in a safe and stable environment, not shouldering burdens of our district, financial or otherwise. Dr. Luro has been here for a very short time and immediately found more cost savings than Princeton Plan has provided, very quickly, I might add. And we're grateful to you for that. I have said this from the start, and I steadfastly stand by this point. Equity issues should be addressed with equity assessments, equity solutions, not financial solutions that might provide equity. And sorry, yes, I remain still bitter of how this was sold to the community because it was not clear and transparent. And I do thank you for attempting to create more transparency because we are all passionate for the same thing. We all want the best for all of the children, not one child or 2 children, everybody, right? I don't think anybody disagrees with that. On top of this, we have the additional burden of safety. And I'm sure you've all heard me speak numerous times about that. So I say thank you to that for you for trying to find the right balance between education, finances, safety, and equity, because they are the 4 legs to the foundation of our district. As we move forward in these discussions, we must keep in mind that recent election where a representative supportive of changing the K-5 model lost to 1 in support of Princeton Plan model by only 10%, meaning more specifically 55% to 45 split, shows there's a huge divide, huge, that remains in our community. And we should be focused on trying to find how to unify and find what's best. Our solutions should provide educational quality for all students, safety, reduced transitions, which means stability for our youngest learners, focus on spending on learning, not transportation. And additionally, we need to ensure we're providing additional support to our elementary students for the next year or 2 coming out of COVID. We should not wait for the data to tell us our kids are lagging, as has been identified nationwide after the pandemic. We must be proactive for them. They carry the burden of this restructure on top of COVID learning. They deserve better. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Sarah Rubin?
Hi, Sarah Rubin. I am completely unprepared. I don't like coming unprepared when I have to publicly speak, but so it goes. I want the board to know, and I don't think I've heard this opinion at all tonight. I'm not sure in the past, maybe people do it behind the scenes, but there's a really large group of people
who actually bought their homes so that their kids can go to their community school. And it's really crappy that this plan was forced upon us. And the homes that we bought, our kids now cannot go to our community schools. I have 3 children. I have a 9th grader in high school. He's a non-issue. I have a 5th grader now at Furnace Woods, and I have a 3rd grader who's at BV. Now, my 3rd grader went K through 2 to Furnace Woods to BV for 1 year, back to Furnace Woods. Ridiculous, insane. You tell anybody out of this district about this ridiculous plan and they laugh. I'm like so upset. This is infuriating to me. I mean, people, we all, pretty much everybody in this room bought their house knowing what elementary school their kid was going to go to. I'm really sorry if you didn't like that elementary school. Then, you know, like maybe you should have bought your house there. I mean, the fact that my daughter is bused 25 minutes to school. Donna Teresi is amazing. We're very, very lucky to have her. But like, you want your kid to be with my kid, that's cool. But why does my kid have to be bused across town to satisfy your need? It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. DEI, all these pro-Princeton plan people in this room talked and yelled and blah, blah, blah about DEI. What has been done about DEI? I have a high school kid, I have a Furnace Wood kid, and I have a BV kid. I haven't seen a darn thing come home about DEI, okay? I work at a national law firm. We have a major issue on the West Coast right now with DEI, okay? It's all over the press, it's a disaster. What did my firm do? We hired a DEI PR firm to take care of the situation. Has the board done that? Has the district done that? If these people really care about DEI, it seems like we certainly have enough money to spend on everything else. Why haven't you done anything to solve your DEI problem? But instead, my daughter has to be bused 25 minutes across town to quote unquote solve your DEI issues, which it hasn't even solved. The people in my neighborhood who bought their homes so that their kids can go to Furnace Woods. And what are you going to say to them, to all of those new families who now are not going to be able to go to the school that they bought their home for? Pretty freaking sad, if you ask me.
Jonathan Brennan.
My name is John Granoff. I am also completely unprepared and probably not as well spoken as the last speaker or all the other speakers before. I do appreciate the time that you're giving all of us to speak today. I've been a homeowner since 2014. Like the last speaker, I did buy my home thinking that my kids were going to go a certain route, that their community school was going to be within their community, and I feel like they're 5 and 2, so between their learning and between my wife and I, we both work long hours as well as probably everyone in this room. And we have not, unfortunately, we're catching up to speed on all the plans that happened. So that's partially our fault for not being more attuned to the community, but the fact that we were learning this stuff and catching up to speed on what the Princeton plan was, not having a say, feeling like we didn't have a say until it was too late, caught us pretty off guard, and we're just catching up on trying to do what's right for our kids or deciding what's right for our family, which could be leaving this community that we love, that we spend so much time and effort to get to. I know that enrollment numbers have been down, and having such uncertainty like the Princeton plan provides is a big factor for potentially more families not coming to the community and enrollment numbers not going up anymore. Or other people like me who might potentially just get up and leave because we don't have any certainty on what the future brings. The biggest personal things that I fear and what I want for my kids are for my 2-year-old and my 5-year-old to be able to be in the same school, which is something that I thought they would be. And honestly, for all kids that are in EV, just news reports, violations that were given by the NRC as recently as last year in March. What violations? A big company like Coltec could continue to make violations like that, which could harm all kids that go to BV. And for that reason, if I had to choose a plan, it would be to either close BV schools, because it seems like that is a huge threat, and or just keeping grades together as much as possible. The more we.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Thank you.
General Hall.
Good evening. I'm totally unprepared, but I figured I would show up and say something because behind the scenes, I am somebody who does have an opinion. And I think that it's important that if you are talking behind the scenes, that you get up and make a statement. And so that is why I'm here. And I was like last minute signing up. So anyways, some of the points that I want to make, I have 2 kids. My daughter she's going into 3rd next year, and my son will be in Furnace Woods in 4th grade. This year, I've had the complete luxury of having the kids in one school, EV. Was it inconvenient that I have to drive, 15 minutes there, 15 minutes back when we're Furnace Woods? So yes, so to the other people who were speaking about that, it is a huge inconvenience, but because my kids were in one school, great, made it work. Next year is going to be really different. I work from home. I'm an entrepreneur, and it's going to be a really, really big burden having different drop-off times, pickup times, coordinating after school activities, and not to mention my daughter is in gymnastics and their start time is 4 o'clock. She doesn't get home until 3:50. 3:50, and the schools are dismissed at what time? So I actually have to stop my workday earlier, about almost an hour, to be able to get to BV, pick them up at the time, right? 2:50 is pickup, to get home by 3:15, 3:20. It's insane. And I would love to be able to just utilize the buses, but I don't know how. We'll see. I'm like, it'll work next year. The other big thing I just want to say is just thank you for the Plan B option. When I heard about that, I was so relieved. I even came to that Board of Ed meeting and I spoke and I was like, oh my goodness, like, thank God. And I then realized that, you guys have decided to postpone everything, and so we'll have to deal with this next year. I do think that in general, the bigger picture here is looking at what is going to be the long-term solution. Everything that came to be with Princeton Plan was quick, behind the scenes, right after COVID, and it was for money, to save money, which it didn't do, right? We know that, we've heard that so many times. And so I think that from this point on, it really is about, yes, listening to the community, but also knowing that everybody's always going to have their own opinions, right? And so as a board coming together to really look at the long-term picture of what this is doing for kids coming into our district. There are so many people who are leaving. I have spoken to neighbors who have kids who aren't in school yet. They didn't go vote. I know that because it doesn't affect them yet. And that is what I think is important, is that people who don't have kids in school, it's kind of like, preventative measures, right? We don't take care of ourselves until it's actually happening. And so how can we also speak to the people who are out there for them to understand what's actually happening in our district? Because it seems to me that a lot of people are either considering leaving, or they're just going crazy with figuring out like different ways to handle situations with their schedules. And I don't think that that's fair either. And so I feel like I'm over time because that timer did not start right away, but that's okay. I think all of my points are covered. I just want to thank you. I know that the position that you're in is definitely not easy. And I also just want to make a note that I think that there are a lot of people who are very against Princeton plan. And I find it very, very fascinating that all of a sudden, I don't really see that side anymore. It's almost like people have quickly adjusted and now there's a new problem. And so really coming back to like, what are the morals and the values? And this is just to everybody, not just to the board, of what you believed in, what you thought first when this came to be, and remembering that, because that matters. That's all. Thank you.
Lauren Stanko.
Hi, I spoke at the forum last time in December, and I feel like now that we've been through 1 year of the Princeton plan and the year is ending, my position hasn't changed. It's actually just feels like more frenzied than ever coming off the school year. I feel like a frazzled parent. I have 3 kids in the district. I feel like I spent this whole year driving my kids all over the district, trying to constantly keep up on what's happening in all the schools. We get a million emails on a Friday. I can't keep up. I don't even know what time schools are dismissing on the half days. The last day of school, it's like everything is just very confusing. We have to do, 2 different field days, all the different school holidays, all the things are just very crazy. Also, it just feels like my daughter, who is in 1st grade, is getting ready to go to a new school at BV. She's got to go on a tour of a school where it's rumored there's not even going to be a principal, which I don't know if that's true or not. Nobody knows what's happening. Our superintendent put this plan in place and now he's gone. The district has no idea why. He just left. And it just seems like if this was the best plan, why is the principal leaving? Why is the superintendent gone? Is this doing anything for our kids? Is there any academic positive, like any positives going on here? We just need to know a plan. And I just feel that we need to go back to our K-5 schools. This year has just been nuts. I feel like all the parents feel crazy at the end of this year and nothing really positive has come out of it. It is good that the kids are together. I'm not gonna lie, that is nice having all the kids getting to be together, but it was supposed to be one experience for all the kids, not all the grades, all the classes and the grades have not had the same experience. My daughter in 4th grade has not had the same experience as the other classes. They have not done the same things in the classrooms. The field trips are split up. One field trip to basketball took like a month to get the whole 4th grade there. Ashokan had to be split up as it was even before the schools were, K-5 anyway. So I just haven't really seen any positives. And I just feel as though the plans are seeming convoluted. We talk about closing BV possibly in 2 of the plans that are out there. There's 5 plans and 2 of the plans talk about closing BV. But then we hear, like Dr. Laurel mentioned in an interview, that possibly we're not going to close BV. So I just feel like, what is the point? Are we really going to talk about closing BV? Are we going to stick with Princeton plan? Are we going back to K-5? It's very confusing. So I just feel like we need to figure out what's going on. The kids are not in a good position. The kids, especially going to 2nd grade, are in a terrible position. They may not have a principal. They're going on their 3rd transition in 3 years. And next year they're going to have a 4th transition possibly. So you just really have to consider all those facts. I still haven't put my kids on the bus. The bus rides are still long. I'm not planning on putting them on the bus next year. And I have a whole nother year to look forward to driving my kids all over this district. I have a kid in middle school, a kid in Furnace Woods, and now a kid going to BV. And it's just very stressful. So thank you.
Ms. Duffy.
Hi, I arrived here late tonight. Thank you all for holding this forum again. I feel like it's kind of like the Twilight Zone, but we're here again and that's okay. We've been through a lot more months, a lot more has happened, but I just came from my kindergartner's graduation dinner or celebration dinner with my family, my husband's family, and it was really nice. And he's had a very up and down year, as has my family. For me personally, this has been the most difficult year of my life. Having to give up my own private business to transport my kids back and forth across the district, having to take one child out of the district for concerns over safety at Buchanan Verplank, which I know others have spoken to. That's kind of how I came into this whole, I guess, debacle to begin with. But I know, as others have mentioned, we have a school that is 400 feet from a transmission gas pipeline that is perilous. We are less than 4,000 feet from a decommissioning nuclear power facility, also perilous situation. We've spoken up about this for years now. A member of our community has spoken about it for 10 years. Our former superintendent never bothered to listen, never bothered to respond, never bothered to plan anything in order to prevent any of our concerns, in order to alleviate any of those concerns as our children move through the district, regardless of where they are. However, the greatest, I think, difficulty for me personally this year has been Princeton plan. My son had been on the bus for an hour the first couple weeks of school into the first month. He still gets home right about 4 o'clock. He cannot participate in any after-school activities that are not through the school. He cannot be in any sports. He cannot have play dates with friends of his who live across town, which one of his best little friends does. It's very difficult for a family to do that. We had to hire a babysitter to wait for the bus for my daughter that gets home at 3:10, my other daughter that I have to pick up at 3:30, and my son that gets home at 4. I can't be there for all my kids at once. I cannot support all of my children, which is a very difficult thing to do as a parent. I did move here knowing that my kids would go to Furnace Woods. Cindy Kramer was the principal of the the elementary school, the town next door my husband grew up. We had an opportunity to meet with her, get to know the school. We felt very comfortable sending our kids there. And we've had a very, like I said, up and down year at Frank G. Lindsay. And I hope that we can learn from our mistakes this year, not having children able to be in a bathroom in their own classroom, accidents on the bus, just that length of time on the bus. There's been so many foibles, and parents have suffered, children have suffered immensely. And I really hope, and I beg of all of you to just think about what's best for the entire community. Look at all these solutions before we make any more decisions. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I live right here in Montrose for 20 years. And I used to have my 2 kids right here, but I have now my 2 grandkids. One is in BB in 3rd grade, and the other one is in pre-K in Frangie. The separation of school is like it used to be before. It's not going anymore. I would like to just suggest to you, I don't know who's in charge, to be just like before for kinder to 5th grade one school. Because like I say, I was listening to my granddaughter's in the bus for a long time. She's really very tired to be in the bus for a long time because she's go to pick the kids from Montrose, and then instead go to BB, comes to Frangie to leave the kids and then go to BB. Sometimes I had to drop them off because I had to put them in the bus. And also after school, she spent a long time in the bus. And she said, Mommy, I'm so tired to be in the bus for a long time. And instead just go like it used to be. We live in Harper Avenue. Instead goes close to the street, she has to go far away instead in the same school. So I would like to ask whoever's in charge to consider that just to cover all the grades in the same school. Thank you.
That was our last speaker. Thank you all for being here tonight. If anybody, if you speak to anybody that missed it and they would like to send in their thoughts and feedback, they can email boe@henhoodschools.org anytime. And the board will be announcing more opportunities in smaller groups where some people may be more comfortable to come and speak with us, and other stakeholder engagement activities. So please stay tuned and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I need a motion to close the meeting. Can I have a second? All in favor? Have a good night.